Hello and welcome to Favorite Rugby on Forever Sports, and the potential worst fears imaginable for Springbok fans has potentially come true. Malcolm Marx is reportedly out of the World Cup after apparently tearing his ACL in training yesterday, which would be an absolute disaster for the Springboks and put a huge dent in a potential title defense. Before we speak about exactly what we know, what we don't know, and what we're still waiting to find out, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. So we put a video out last night after it was confirmed that Malcolm Marx had been sent to the hospital for scans after suffering an injury in training. We had no additional information with regards to what the injury was, what the nature of the injury was, as well as how sort of serious it was expected to be. However, this morning, or even last night actually, there were a couple of rumors coming out that it was an ACL related injury, and this morning it has now come out that apparently it is an ACL and that it will rule him out for the World Cup. There is at this stage no final word or word from the Springbok camp. There has been no release or anything like that. But Hendrik Corneer, who is a very reputable journalist when it comes to what's happening within the Springbok camp, often gets team news, for example, and leaks and stuff. So he's very much informed of what's going on within the Springbok camp. He earlier tweeted that the bad news for Springboks is Malcolm Marx is out of the World Cup. And that is absolutely massive. I mean, I cannot actually think of a player who is more valuable or less replaceable than Malcolm Marx. Springboks got fantastic depth, we know this, but there are certain positions where there are certain key players that we cannot afford to lose. Malcolm Marx is one of those players, and this is going to be a huge dent in the World Cup defense. You know, we're talking about a player who is arguably the best in his position in the world, and arguably one of the top 10, if not top 5, best players in the world. On his day, could be the best player in the world. You know, he is that good. And he is that important to the Boks. You know, Malcolm Marx, Bongi Mbonambi are so important to the Boks that we didn't even take a third hooker. You know, that was the plan. You know, Deon Fourie is not filling in a hooker, for example, but we kind of backed those two to do the work. And I mean, Malcolm Marx is now playing 50 to 60 minutes every single game. He's incredibly important at the breakdown, his line of work. The power he brings is unmatched when it comes to the Boks. So this is an absolutely huge blow for the team, and a massive blow for the individual who I think is playing his best rugby he's ever played. He's been so good in the last couple of years. You know, class of his own really at times, and this will definitely put a bit of a damp on it. But more to the point, it's a position we couldn't afford to lose out in. I mean, ironically, Eben Etzebeth, for example, has been one of the most important players for the Springboks over the last few years. But the way that John Clane's played recently has made it seem, you know, if Etzebeth were not to be available for the Island game, we've got a capable replacement. You know, now Bongi Mbonambi is more than capable of filling in for Malcolm Marx. The issue comes in with who the next option is, because we didn't actually take an out-and-out hooker, a third out-and-out hooker, which means that Deon Fourie is covering this weekend. But if Malcolm Marx is injured, we're gonna have to bring in an extra player, and it will most likely be Joseph Dweba, who I'm a big fan of. I like Joseph Dweba. I think he's really had a good season in the past for the Storms. I think he's really grown. He's no Malcolm Marx. Nobody's Malcolm Marx, to be honest. And he is a player who has struggled at times in international rugby. He's blown hot and cold. He's taken a while to adapt. They backed him. You know, they put a lot of faith in him, but they didn't back him enough to take him as an option for the World Cup. And now, potentially, he's not only going to have to be called into the squad, but he's going to be playing in matchday 23s, to be honest. So, as I said, it could not get bigger in terms of a blow for the Springboks. And yeah, for my thoughts go out to Malcolm Marx if this is the case. We haven't had any official announcement, but some very reputable sources are reporting that this is the case. And if it is an ACL tickets, he's not going to make it back to this World Cup. And that's what I was saying yesterday. You know, we're now at a situation where we're almost midway through September. The tournament ends end of October. So anything between a 4 to 6 week injury rules you out of the tournament. So even if it's not an ACL tear, for example, if it's an ACL injury which has got a 7-8 week recovery, that's out for the tournament. If it's a 4-week recovery, that puts you into almost out of the tournament, maybe semi-finals, final. And whilst I think Malcolm Marx is an important player that they would keep at all costs, if there was a chance of him making it, you know, if it's an ACL tear, he's gone. You know, and that's it. And absolutely heartbreaking to lose him so early in the tournament as well. and it's a big blow to the box. So we'll give you guys a final confirmation when we do hear it. But some very, very good sources are reporting the news, and so we thought we would give you the update. What do you think? Down in the comments below. How much does this dent the Box World Cup chances? How important is he? Could this be the difference? Between winning the World Cup or not? And it's difficult to always say that a World Cup's going to come down to one player. But World Cups can come down to moments, for example, and that's like a match-winning penalty. It's a turnover and a try. And we're talking about the highest try score in Springbok history for forwards. So that's what we're losing out on. We're losing out on a player who creates turnovers in incredibly important situations, who can create penalties that can win us games. We're talking about a player who wins matches for the Box, and we've now lost him. So it's a huge loss. It's a big opportunity for whoever takes his place. And, this is where we really hope that, World Cup stories are written like that, where a player who was not back gets called into the squad, has the tournament of his lifetime, helps them win the World Cup, makes history. That's where, these stories and these narratives can come into. And hopefully this injury, for example, will galvanize the Springboks and sitting there saying, right, a bit like last tournament where, for the likes of a Trevor and JC Creel, players who got injured and didn't manage to feature as much as they would have, now they're playing for those players. And sitting there saying, let's go out and do this for a Malcolm, for example, for an Andre Pollard, for a Lekanya. But I mean, those three players, when you're looking at the fact that those three players are not in the squad, how important they were in the last World Cup, shows you how big injuries can impact squads and stuff. So let me know what you think. Can we cope without them down in the comments below? Apart from that, smash like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven. I'll chat to you soon.